Namaste, Vanakkam, Swagatam. Welcome back to our Scintillating Saturdays, the morning sessions that we have been continuing now after completing the 108 non-stop sessions and other things. Let us start by invoking the energies of the Guru Parampara with the Guru Gayatri. Tad Paramparaye Vidmahe Jnanalingeshwaraya Dhimahi Tanno Guru Prachodayate Om Yoga Maharshi Dr. Swami Geetananda Giri Guru Maharaj Ki Jai. Last week, we started the concept of looking at mudras, especially the Hasta mudras. The Hasta meaning the hands. Our hands, also called kara, are the action senses of doing. We do so much using the hands. And the hands are connected to the heart. So the heart and the hands. So the hands can be understood as an extension of the heart. So whatever you do, you should do it with heartfulness. Fullness, wholesomeness, heartfulness. And so the hands are possibly, you may consider them that way, it's a very beautiful concept. The hands as an extension of the heart, the anahata, that center of compassion, empathy, support, union, communion, community. All of that is through the hands. And that is why the hands are given great importance. In fact, in Indian culture, when the person wakes up in the morning, they look at the hands and they utter a shloka talking about the divinity that is manifesting in the hands. Our hands are having representation of the whole body. They are having representation of different devatas, different aspects of the divine. And so when we perform Hasta Mudras, these are not just simple throwaway gestures, but they are communicating deeply, intrapersonally, interpersonally, and transpersonally. So with that brief introduction, I wanted to start off today on a mudra which is a very popular mudra, and it is called the Shanmukhi mudra. Shanmukhi meaning Shat Mukha. The Shat refers to six, Shat, and Mukha is the faces. What is a face? A face is a direction. A face is one aspect of our perception. So the six-fold perception mudra. Six-fold perception mudra. Shanmukhi. Six-faced gesture is how it is normally translated. I am giving you another perspective that it is the six perspectives in one mudra. So what are these six? First of all, let's get back to a bit of Sanskrit grammar. So Shat and Mukha, they come together and Shat Mukha becomes Shanmukha, as in Lord Kartikeya Shanmukha. So Shat Mukha becomes Shanmukha and Shatmukhi becomes Shanmukhi. So here the term is Shanmukhi, referring to the six face, six perspectives. This mudra is bringing into connotation the sensory apparatus and a higher cortical choice-based control over the sensory apparatus. This is known as pratyahara in yoga. Pratya ahara, to go against the tendency to seek nourishment. Ahara is translated as food, it is nourishment. Your senses are constantly going out in search of nourishment for themselves. Your eyes want to see something. Your ears want to hear something. Your nose wants to smell something. Your skin wants to feel something. Your tongue wants to taste something. So all of this is happening. The senses are going out. These are called the jnana indriyas, the senses that give us information. The jnana indriyas, which are the eyes, the ears, the nose, the tongue, and the skin. These 5 jnana indriyas, they are constantly going outward. They are constantly going out in search of nourishment for themselves. Okay? Now, in yoga, the concept of pratyahara implies you go back in, you withdraw from this process. So you are going against nourishment of the senses. Pratya ahara. Pratya is the opposite. Pratya ahara. So what you are doing is you are going against this natural tendency of the senses to go out in search of nourishment, and you are saying, instead of going out, come in, guys. You are holding the reins of the chariot, the horses, and pulling them back. You are having that control. And who has that control? The mind, the manas. And who is a human being? One who can utilize that power of mind. And what is there in that power of mind? The power of choice, the superpower of being human. So, when we are disentangling the senses from their tendency to unite with the objects, Maharishi Patanjali, Superman Pat, he tells us that Svavishaya asamprayoge chittasya. Very beautiful concept. Svavishaya asamprayoge. Sum means summation, as in all your mathematical sums. You summate, you add. Asamprayoge means to disentangle, to come away, to subtract. Samprayoge is to add, asamprayoge is to subtract, to remove, to disentangle. So your senses have all got entangled with the sensory objects. Svavishaya asamprayoge chittasya. A beautiful concept of the chitta which includes all aspects of the mind. And what you are doing is you are disentangling the tendency of your mind and you to go and get attached to the senses. You are disentangling the mind from it. Automatically the senses will follow the mind. Because the senses will follow the mind. The mind is the super sense. So you have the 5 jnana indriyas. Okay? 5 jnana indriyas. Shrotra, the ears. Chakshu, the eyes. Grahana, the nose. Jivha, the tongue. And tvak, the skin. And what are they perceiving? They are perceiving the tanmatras. Shabda. The beautiful sound is perceived by the ears. Rupa, the form, is seen by the eyes. The gandha, the smell, by the nose. The rasana by the tongue. And sparsha by the skin. The tanmatras, which are the subtle elements, as opposed to the pancha mahabhuta, which are the gross elements, they are connected to the sensory apparatus. So what you are doing, you are disentangling them from their tendency to go out into the manifest world, and you are saying, instead of going into the manifest world, come back into yourself. Don't go out, come back into yourself. That is the message you are giving. Now, 6 phases, 5 senses. So what is the 6th? Mind. So when we say Shanmukhi, we are talking about a choice-based disentanglement of the 5 senses that are then pulled back into the mind, coming back into the mind and being established in the self. Swarupanukara. You come back into yourself. Swavishaya asamprayoge chittasya swarupanukara. You have to come back into yourself. That is where pratyahara comes. So when we do the Shanmukhi Mudra, we are dealing with the five senses and the mind. It becomes a pratyahara mudra. We talk a lot about pratyahara. But then what are the techniques for pratyahara? Well, Shanmukhi Mudra is one of the pratyahara techniques. Because it enables us to go inward. It is an antarmukha, an inner facing technique. It enables you to face inward rather than outward, which is what the senses are doing. They are constantly facing outward. You are turning your senses on yourself and going inside. That is the concept of the Shanmukhi Mudra. Now it is also said the two eyes, the two ears, and the nostrils. And this is considered then as the concept of the six. This is another explanation given. Now before I go further, I want to mention here that classically the Shanmukhi Mudra is also called, or rather it is called Yoni Mudra. Yoni. Yoni means the generative organ, or rather the womb. And Divya Hirata, you have been talking a lot about the Zoom womb. This is the Zoom Yoni. The Yoni is the womb. And when you perform this Shanmukhi Mudra or Yoni Mudra, the term Yoni Mudra is found in the Gheranda Samhita. So the Gheranda Samhita talks about Yoni Mudra, that we then understand as Shanmukhi. And in this mudra, it is said, it should be kept secret. Again, anything that is of value should be kept secret. And what I have realized is, even if you tell it to people and they are not ready, they are not going to hear it. So I'm not too worried about that anymore. I used to be a bit worried about that. I realized that if people are not capable of understanding it, they are not even going to hear it, let alone take it in. So we don't have to worry about it. Yoni Mudra is said to be the practice where you are going into an introspective space. You are going into a process of introspective awareness, and it is said at this point you have to bring your mind. You have now closed out the senses. So the five senses and mind have been closed to come back in, 6. Now you focus on the 6 chakras. Again the number 6, Shanmukhi. Each of the 6 chakras, these are all the Pinda chakras, the lower chakras. Mooladhara, Swadhisthana, Manipura, Anahata, Vishuddha, Ajna. The lower 5 centers are related to the senses and the Ajna is related to the mind. Isn't that wonderful? So the 6 perspectives, the 6 faces, and the 6 lower chakras, the Pinda chakras. So when you perform the Yoni Mudra, you are then contemplating the Mooladhara, Swadhisthana, Manipura, Anahata, Vishuddha, Ajna. And it is said at that time the Bija mantras should be recited mentally. Lang, Wang, Rang, Yang, Hang, Ang, Om. And within yourself you are reciting Lang, Wang, Rang, Yang, Hang, Ang, Om. What you are doing is that you are reciting the bijas. You are becoming aware of Mooladhara, earth element related to the smell. Swadhisthana, water element related to taste. Manipura, the fire element related to sight. Anahata, the air element related to touch. Vishuddha, the ethereal space element related to communication. And then finally the manas related to consciousness. You are becoming aware of this, and your whole sensory apparatus, all the energy that is expended outwards has been brought in and conserved, so that now that energy can focus on what is known as the Kundalini. And this dormant potential energy can then flow seamlessly through the central canal, Sushumna Nadi, and the Devi can be brought up and united with her Lord. The Devi, the Shakti with the Shakta, the Devi with the Deva, Parvati with Shiva. This concept of the potential energy becoming manifest in us, and that this enables this beautiful manifestation to occur from within. Because as long as your energies are going outward, you have no time or energy for any internal work. As long as your energies are going outward, you are wasting all your energy. It is a catabolic activity. That is sympathetic nervous system driven. Sympathetic nervous system drives your catabolic activity externally. I saw that, I heard that, I smelled that, I felt that. Bah! Fight, flight, freeze, fawn, all these reactions start to occur. Catabolic waste of energy. The moment you perform Yoni Mudra, Shanmukhi Mudra, you are conserving all that energy that is being wasted. And now that energy can be put to use internally. It is like during the COVID pandemic, we have realized how much of unnecessary stuff we were accumulating, how many unnecessary things we were doing. And we started to realize, as my other t-shirt says, less is more. Less is more. Going inside. That is Pratyahara. And Pratyahara is the key for the introspective practices of the Samyama, Dharana, Dhyana, Samadhi to manifest. And without Dharana, Dhyana, Samadhi, is it really yoga? The whole process of Hatha is there for the Raja, the higher aspects, the Antaranga, the Samyama. And that is why Pratyahara. So this mudra, Shanmukhi Mudra, Yoni Mudra, how do you perform it? Well, classically it is said, the thumb in the external orifice of the ear, and don't put it too deep right now, if not you will not hear anything I say. Okay, and that is why the yogis said it should be kept secret. Okay, so you plug your ears and you don't hear anything that Dr. Ananda says today. That's a nice way forward, right? Okay. Thumb closing the external auditory canal. You have shut out the sound. The index finger over the eyes. Okay? Thumb in the ears, index finger over the eyes, middle finger at the nostrils, the ring finger at the upper lip, and the little finger at the lower lip. Okay? Okay? Same here. You have got the idea now? Okay? In case you were not paying attention. Ear closed with the thumb, eyes closed with the first finger, the middle finger for the nose, ring finger upper lip, little finger lower lip, same on the other side. Got it? The moment you do this, the whole external world you shut out. The whole external world ceases to exist for you. Maharishi Patanjali tells us that when we transcend everything, None of this exists for us anymore. But for those who are still locked in it, they still have it. It's like they are still in the movie hall watching the show. You have walked out of the movie hall. When you do this, what you are doing is, you are saying, I am not going to be part of this maddening crowd, this mad world, insane asylum of the universe. I am going inside. A beautiful choice to go in. And remember, hands are the extension of the heart center. And you are going deep into your own self. You are connecting with your own self. And that is why the swa, the self, is awakened through this type of practice. As long as you are caught up in the senses, you are identifying with what you see, what you hear, what you taste, what you smell, what you touch. And when you disentangle yourself from the senses, you can go back into yourself. You go back into yourself, and at that point, you get established in yourself. You are being rather than doing all the time. The Shanmukhi Mudra, the Yoni Mudra. The Yoni is a beautiful concept, the womb. Inside the womb, the baby feels safe. The baby is protected in the womb. When you perform this, you go into your own safe space. It is your own emergency bunker. Everybody has these emergency bunkers, including the President of the USA. You have an emergency bunker. The Shanmukhi Mudra, Yoni Mudra is taking you into your emergency bunker so that you are not becoming a sympathetically aroused, nervous wreck. And you can go inside and be a balanced human being, responsive human being. Not a reactive species, but a responsive being. A big jump. We are all reactive species, constantly reacting. We need to come back. We need to come back into ourselves. Nitya has asked me a question. Are the nostrils plugged? Do you breathe through the mouth or nose? No, you are breathing through the nose. What this is doing is, it is enabling you to feel the air coming in and out. So what you are doing is, you are blocked. Two senses are totally blocked. The ears and the eyes, which are the primary senses that are constantly engaging us. The nostrils we are using here, we start to become aware of the flow of the breath. And as you start to become aware with the flow of the breath, it can become deeper, it can become slower, it can become more mindful. And it becomes a meditative practice. That is why the Shanmukhi Mudra is part of going inside. It's a meditative mudra, which is why we then add, and in a few moments I'll come to that, the Brahmari Pranayama, which is the bee sounding breath to it. And then suddenly it becomes even deeper. The mudra itself is deep. Now, I wanted to, before that, give you one more bit of information. When you place your hands like this, you are bringing your hands into contact with one of the cranial nerves, the fifth cranial nerve, called the trigeminal nerve. The trigeminal nerve is the fifth cranial nerve. And if you look at a diagram, go and Google it. If you look at a diagram, the base of the nerve you will find here. Okay? So when you're placing your hand here, it's as if you're placing the thumb at the base of the trigeminal nerve. It of course comes from the brainstem, but from here it then divides. And the trigeminal actually has about 5 aspects, but 3 major. One goes up to this region, the eyes and above. It's the ophthalmic branch of the trigeminal. Optal eyes. Okay? The second one comes to this part, the upper jaw. So this is the maxillary branch of the trigeminal nerve. And the third one comes down to the lower jaw. It is the mandibular branch. Okay? So ophthalmic branch of the trigeminal nerve, maxillary branch of the trigeminal nerve, mandibular branch of the trigeminal. 3 branches supplying the whole face. fifth cranial nerve. Now the ophthalmic and the maxillary are sensory nerves. The trigeminal, ophthalmic and maxillary are sensory. The mandibular is sensory and motor, in that the muscles of mastication, which means also you're talking. All the movements of the lower jaw, the upper jaw doesn't move, only the lower jaw moves, and does all of this. All of this is happening because my mandibular, I'm just checking out my mandibular branch of my trigeminal nerve. Yeah, it's working. Okay, the tongue is supplied by different glossopharyngeal and hypoglossal. This is the mandibular. You cannot move the maxilla, it is fixed. So the ophthalmic and maxillary, the two components are sensory. The third one, mandibular branch, is sensory and motor. It's mixed. So you'll see that this is primarily a sensory nerve, the trigeminal, though there's also the motor component for this part. Again, sensations, pratyahara, starts to make sense. And when you place your hands in your ears, the thumbs here, what you are doing is you are getting to like the base of that trigeminal nerve, and the fingers are going to the ophthalmic, the next fingers are going to the maxillary, and these are coming to the mandibular. And so when you perform the Shanmukhi Mudra, your hands are actually tracing the way the trigeminal nerve comes across your face. And I remember when I was learning anatomy as a medical student, this was mind-blowing that the yogis were doing a mudra that was actually placing your hands and the energy of the hands. The placing the hands on the very pathway of the trigeminal nerve, which gives you all the sensation of the whole face. And the face is such an important part of sensory apparatus. And what is Shanmukhi Mudra? A pratyahara mudra that says, disentangle from your sensory trap. It is called Indriya Jala. Indriya Jala is the snare, the web of the senses. And you move inwards and you come to a state called Indriya Jaya, where you master the senses, you transcend the senses. And that is where once you come into the Ajna, the lower senses can start to be brought under control, conscious volition. When you need to see, you see. When you don't need to see, why waste your energy? When you need to hear, hear. When you don't, why waste your energy? Beautiful correlations between the trigeminal nerve, the fifth cranial nerve, the sensory and the motor. And it has both sympathetic and parasympathetic connotations, but a lot of it is parasympathetic. There's a lot of parasympathetic, which is again, calm yourself down. So when you are working with this, you are calming yourself down. So Shanmukhi Mudra, 5 senses plus the mind, 6 orifices, sort of. Then coming to the fact of the 6 chakras, the bija mantras, it's an internal process that can actually utilize the energy you are conserving from external wastage, put that energy on the inside so that you can work on yourself through the union of Shakti and Shiva in the Brahma Randhra. The cranium is where that occurs. Now to this you add the Nada. The Nada is a very, very beautiful concept because Nada, and I highly recommend a very beautiful PowerPoint presentation, an article by my dear Dr. Jayaraman Mahadevan at the Krishnamacharya Yoga Mantram, Chennai. I have shared it on my social media, and if not, you send me an email, I'll send it to you. Beautiful article on Nada. And one of the best presentations and articles I've seen. A very genuine yoga researcher with a deep insight into yoga. And he gave us a beautiful talk on the importance of Sanskrit in yoga at our Sri Balaji Vidyapeeth last year. Beautiful article on Nada. Nada as vibration. And how this vibration, when you do the Shanmukhi Mudra and you do Bhramari Pranayama. Bhramari is one of the Nada, also called Swara Pranayama, where you make the sound like a bee. So now when you do the Shanmukhi Mudra and you do this, what is happening is that the senses which are going out have been brought back in. You have created a closed space, your safety bunker. You have come into that safe, secure space within yourself. And there's a lot of talk about creating safe spaces in yoga. The safest, most secure space is within yourself. And Shanmukhi Yoni Mudra enables that to happen. You are in that safe and secure, and maybe add to it, sacred space for the self. Safe, secure, sacred space for the self. You are coming into that with the Shanmukhi Mudra, all S's. Beautiful. That came together very nicely. And you are coming into that. And at that point, when you make the nada, the beautiful vibrations that are brought into your whole system, physically, physiologically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. You are attuning yourself, and no wonder a beautiful sense of the bliss coming from the endorphins, enkephalins, all of them arousing. Your whole skull vibrates with that sound when you do this. Beautiful sense. Just 3 rounds and I was just having a beautiful sense of ease. Sukham. Beautiful Sukham coming. Such a beautiful Sukham, such a beautiful Anandam coming when you do this. Now, I wanted to share with you personally that though traditionally we say index, ring, middle, and then there, ring and little finger here. Okay? For me personally, as I have done this practice, I like to place the 2 fingers over the eyes. The ring finger at the nose and the little finger at the mouth. Okay, so this is a variation that I like to do. And the reason is I choose 2 fingers rather than 1 is I find that when I use 2 fingers, I block out the light, external light more effectively. Okay, so I'm making it very clear. This is Dr. Ananda's variation on it. Because when the scriptures have talked about 1 finger for the eye, the Garuda Samhita especially, where they call it Yoni Mudra, 1 finger for the eye, 1 finger for the nostrils, 1 for the upper lip, 1 for the lower lip. But what I find is 1 finger doesn't block out the external light as effectively as 2 fingers. Okay, so the moment you put 2 fingers over the eye, the light is blocked out. The external light is blocked out so the internal light can start to work. It is like you have lights in your house, but if it's very bright outside, those lights have no use. The moment you put the curtains, the inner light can glow and be bright. So this is like putting a better curtain when you put it this way. So Yoni Mudra or Shanmukhi Mudra, a mudra of the 6 faces, the 6 perspectives, closing down the externalized engagement and opening up the internal engagement. The 6 chakras being visualized, being contemplated, and the energy flowing from the base to up to the top of the cranium, where the potential energy can manifest as an actuality, and there can be that transcendence which comes. The fingers are just to feel the air flowing through the nostrils, not to close the nostril, but what you can do is you can slightly give a pressure which then makes you more aware of the way the air is flowing. You don't close it totally, you don't want to die yet, okay? But it gives you a feeling. And when you make the nada of the Brahmari pranayama, the nada, what is very interesting in the Brahmari is that you actually then can start to regulate how that sound is moving through you. Now, if I go into detail, the Brahmari pranayama has both sound on the inhalation and exhalation. So the exhalation is the Brahmari, the inhalation is the Brahmara. The male B is the Brahmara, which is the sound made on the inhalation. So it is a when you are breathing in, you make a sound by breathing in. That is the high-pitched male B sound. And when you breathe out, it's the lower-pitched female. But normally we are only talking of the externalized sound. So you add to it. But Shanmukhi Mudra, Yoni Mudra on its own is one of the 25 classical mudras of the Garanta Samhita. And the Yoni Mudra, a very beautiful practice to enable us to have that sense of being back in our mother's womb. That beautiful, safe, secure space. We just had to enjoy being there. Mom took care of everything, right? We just had to be there. Unperturbed by all the nonsense going on every place. I think it's so important to have that. We get too caught up with nonsense. Now, this is what I wanted to share about Shanmukhi and Yoni Mudra today. Saumya from France had asked me yesterday a question. She said about Yoga Mudra. So one Yoga Mudra we do is the Hasta Mudra. The hand gesture called Yoga Mudra, where we bring the fingers together, and I will work on this on another day. But just to answer her question, because if a student asks a question, I feel I need to try to answer to the best of my capacity. So the Yoga Mudra is where you bring the fingers of two hands together and interlock them. It is a communion of the two sides, the two energies. Now there's another Yoga Mudra where you catch your hands behind your back, catching the wrist of one hand with the other, and you are in Padmasana or Sukhasana, and you bend down, bringing your head down to the ground. And this is also called Yoga Mudra. So her question was, this holding of the opposite wrist as opposed to this, they are two different practices. Though both are called Yoga Mudra, a common issue we have in yoga is that there are same names for many techniques and many names for the same technique. That is part of the beauty of yoga. So don't ever get confused by it. Just enjoy it. Enjoy the variety that is there. So here, when I bring both the hands together, both the hands, the fingers together and clasp them right over left, what I'm doing is the Hasta Mudra, the hand gesture, which is called Yoga Mudra, uniting the energies of both sides. When I do the other mudra, it is a Kaya Mudra. It is a body mudra. And in Hatha Yoga, when they use the word mudra, they primarily imply a body gesture, not the hand gesture. So the hand gestures are the Hasta Mudras, which are more a tantric derivative and a cultural derivative. But the Hatha yoga concept of mudra is a body gesture. It's called a Kaya. Kaya means the body. So when we catch the hands behind the back and we bend forward, what we are doing is the Yoga Mudra, where we are becoming one big ball. We are coming together in a sense of oneness, which is a sense of yoga. And all the systems are brought into a integrated state. So to answer Saumya from France's question on that, this is Hasta Yoga Mudra, that is the Kaya Yoga Mudra. And though both are given the same name, the connotations, the benefits and all are much different. Both are harmonizing the mind and body to come together. And would the sinus, Padma is saying, would the sinus cavities physically resemble the yoni, mouth, nose to ears? Well, in many ways, yes. I would say that if you look at the skull and you sort of extrapolate the skull onto the feminine reproductive tract, you would actually see quite a bit of that happening. So yes, there is also a correlation to that. And the space of the sinuses in the skull. And again, what is the skull? The skull is the womb for the higher experience. So it is a womb of the higher experience. So the yoni has that also. Multiple correlations. On the 15th of September, I'm starting our yogic psychic neurology. I'm very happy that so many of you have signed up. In fact, it's a marvelous response from all of you, and it's a beautiful challenge because I have taught these concepts separately till now. I've never put them all together. So it is a good challenge for me. How are you going to teach it? How are you going to put it together? And I'm actually, for the first time, really starting to prepare in the sense of what am I going to do in the first class? What am I going to do in the second class? And putting together some images and some slides to share with the participants. So it's a beautiful learning experience. So I'm really enjoying myself preparing for the upcoming yogic psychic neurology sessions. We'll be looking at the concept of the nadis, the bindus, the chakras, the doshas, the gunas. It's going to be marvelous. And simultaneously, I have firmed up the ideas for the yoga step by step, and we will be having the first introductory session on October 2nd with Ammaji's blessings. It is going to be divided into 4 components, where there will be the initial part, which are the basic practices. The second is intermediate, then third is advanced, and fourth is senior. So there are 4 modules of 13 weeks each. The 4 modules of 13 weeks is going to be there. And I have invited some of our senior teachers of the Gitananda tradition, many of them who have taught the yoga step by step for their own students as part of the ashram's outreach over the many years. And also many of the senior teachers who have come back to the ashram and helped us teach the 6-month course. So there will be about 10 of these wonderful teachers joining as associate teachers for this course. Ammaji will be the primary guide. I will be the facilitator. We will have these wonderful yogic human beings helping out from now to then. I'll be having Devasena join me for many of the sessions. I'm hoping Divya will also join, and maybe once in a while Anand Raj. And it's going to be on every Sunday, and I am splitting it into alternate Sundays, morning and evening. So the first week, if it is in the morning, the AM, the next week it will be in the evening, then morning, evening, morning, evening, morning, evening, so that at any time people are going to have an opportunity to at least have half of the sessions live and half recorded. Because if I were to only keep the morning, and some people would get it always live and some would always get it recorded. So I'm trying to make sure that people around the world, we have people from USA, Canada, Australia, South Africa, Suriname, France, Malaysia, all over the world have come in for this. And so I want to make sure that everybody gets an equal chance of having live sessions and recorded. I am splitting it down so people will only pay for each module at a time. And I'm just finalizing the prices today. I'm going to be sending out some details most probably by tomorrow to those who have expressed interest. If you haven't yet done it, send me an email, ananda@icyr.com, and I'll put you on the list. And so each of these will be 13 weeks. So that's 13 Sundays, 13 weeks for module 1, 13 weeks for module 2, for module 3 and 4. And at the end of each module, See, each lesson Swamiji devised with question refreshers, 4 or 5 questions at the end of each lesson. So the students are expected to answer those questions and send them in. So what we'll do is that those who send in that 13 weeks of answers will be eligible for a certificate of that module. So certificate in module 1, which is the basic practices of Gitananda Yoga. Then the next one, similarly, certificate in intermediate practices of Gitananda Yoga. Then the third one, a certificate in advanced practices of Gitananda Yoga, and then certificate in senior practices of Gitananda Yoga. Swamiji devised this course as 4, and then it was put together. So I am going back to Swamiji's model of 4 modules, and those who complete all the 4 and submit a thesis at the end will be eligible for the overall certificate of completion. And I'm trying to find some words that will come into that. So potentially someone who does all 4 could have 4 certificates individually, and also a final certificate which would actually be the major one where they would have had this good training. Of course, it is not that I'm going to do it for you. Each week those 2 hours will be only to introduce the practices, the concepts in that lesson, and in that week I expect you to work at least 4 hours. So that's at least 4 plus 2, 6 hours of work per week, more than 300 hours per year. So your training in this would at least be a 300-hour training at the minimum, if not more. So that is how I'm planning it. A few models will be coming up, and already I'm very pleased to share that I have with me on this as adjunct faculty. We have Yogacharini Devasena, who will be with me. Ammaji, of course, is going to be guiding from behind, and all the question refreshers I'll be sharing with her to evaluate. But Devasena is going to be with me and sharing many of her beautiful intuitive concepts. You have seen through the wonderful Wednesdays what a marvelous job she's doing. So you're going to be having a lot of that. We have Yogacharini Kalavati, we have Yogacharya Jnanadev and Yogacharini Deepika, Yogacharini Sangeeta, Yogacharya Radu and Yogacharini Aishwarya, my dear Yogacharini Jnana Sundari. We have Yogacharini Niraimadi from Australia. We have Dr. Meena Ramanathan, who will also be joining us in that, and a few others who have yet to respond to my email. From Berlin, I'll have Yogacharini Lata and Yogacharini Vijaya also with us. So we are going to have this beautiful team of associate faculty members, and I'm hoping to split up the students of the course into different groups who can be mentored by these senior teachers who have decades of experience in these practices. So I have taken time. The last 6 weeks I have been thinking very deeply about this, because I don't want to just throw it out there. I am not there to just throw the techniques out. I'm not looking for students. I'm not looking for money. I'm not looking for fame, fortune. None of that bothers me. I just want to make sure Swamiji's teachings reach people as the way they should. The right people should get the right teachings in the right way. That is what Dharma is all about. These Saturday morning sessions will continue, and so more Scintillating Saturdays will be coming. Tomorrow we have a Divya session coming up, and tomorrow is Ammaji's birthday, September 13th. So do send in your messages to Ammaji. You can write on her Facebook page, you can send emails, and I'll pass them on to her. A true enlightened being in human form, someone who stays on this planet to guide us. We are truly privileged to live on this planet during her lifetime. Om Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu Sarve Janaha Sukhino Bhavantu. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Om. Thank you very much. See you later. Namaste.